But here lies the deeper challenge for many developing countries. They seek to define their own direction, not simply accept IMF formulas drafted in Washington. Something surprising recently took place in Ouagadougou. One of the planet's most powerful financial institutions quietly sent a senior official straight into the capital. Not to threaten, not to rescue, but merely to observe. That alone should make you pause. Burkina Faso was expected to be unraveling. Security crises flared across regions. Former alliances weakened. A young military ruler openly rejected the conventional economic script. In Africa's history, that combination typically ends one way: runaway inflation, shortages, and distant IMF briefings packed with conditions. This time, the briefing never came. So why did the IMF show up physically? Why did the tone shift from stern caution to something closer to recognition? Let's examine it. The most straightforward answer, and the one many avoid stating outright, is this: Burkina Faso did not collapse. That isn't propaganda or exaggeration. It's the hard reality that forced a reassessment. Consider the circumstances: a country fighting armed groups on several fronts, leadership severing old Western ties, a government channeling resources into security while restoring state authority. In most African precedents, that scenario ends swiftly and badly: currency crashes, fiscal breakdowns, import shortages, then emergency loans with strict conditions. The IMF usually sets the terms remotely. Yet months passed. Then more months. The anticipated warning signs never materialized. Inflation did not spiral. Public finances did not crumble under pressure. Core state operations did not stall. Conditions were not perfect or thriving, but they remained intact. For an organization like the IMF, that matters enormously. They operate on data, not sentiment. They monitor patterns. When a nation predicted to fracture instead stabilizes, it isn't applauded, it's scrutinized. Forecast errors raise red flags. That is why this went beyond paperwork. No virtual meetings or intermediaries. Kenji Okamura didn't log in, he traveled. Something was inconsistent. Burkina Faso endured severe shocks that usually tear systems apart. Elevated security expenditures did not wreck the budget as projected. Political turbulence did not freeze financial management. The economic core continued operating. When facts contradict projections, the IMF must witness it directly. This is not about endorsing the leadership. It is about reality challenging outdated assumptions. The question that brought the IMF to Ouagadougou was not, is Burkina Faso flawless? It was far more troubling. Why did Burkina Faso remain standing when established rules predicted failure? Burkina Faso endured because the state stemmed the losses. It wasn't dramatic speeches or sweeping proclamations. Pressure accumulated quietly within government structures. For years, the system functioned like many post-colonial frameworks: loose rules, relaxed spending, procurement influenced by connections, and the quiet assumption that external partners would always intervene. That dependency rewarded disorder and discouraged responsibility. Under Traore, that cushion disappeared. Budgets became firm. Oversight tightened. Ministries moved from political discretion to strict ceilings. Dubious projects halted. Payments once obscured faced genuine review. None of it was flashy. It slowed processes and irritated networks accustomed to excess. But it achieved one essential outcome. It sealed the leaks. Funds stopped disappearing faster than they were generated. Burkina Faso stabilized not through sudden new revenue, but by retaining what already existed. IMF evaluations noted compliance, about 90% of reform targets achieved, not because donors were pleased, but due to domestic enforcement. That is substantive reform. Pledging change is simple. Enforcing it amid resistance is difficult. This administration absorbed the backlash. Security expenses did not balloon because other areas remained controlled. Finances held because waste was curtailed. Order replaced dysfunction. Yet fiscal discipline alone can unravel a government. Tightening without safeguarding basics like food has toppled more leaders than any coup. So why did widespread unrest not erupt? Because famine never emerged. In Africa, regimes falter when food becomes politicized, markets empty, prices spike, imports collapse. Discipline dissolves when citizens cannot eat. Burkina Faso avoided that scenario. Early on, quietly, food security became untouchable. Rather than leaning on fragile imports, attention shifted inward. Maintain domestic production, secure distribution routes, stabilize markets. Not luxury goods or export ambitions first, continuity. Farms remained productive. Transport corridors stayed functioning. Prices avoided shocks. Rural communities did not overwhelm cities in desperation. Life remained challenging but familiar. That familiarity created tolerance. Many reforms fail by imposing austerity first and addressing social impact later. Burkina Faso reversed the order, secure essentials early, making discipline sustainable. Demonstrations stayed limited. Reforms did not ignite nationwide backlash. The government gained time, the most valuable currency during transformation. That stability triggered further effects. Social calm allowed reforms to endure. Reforms ensured institutions functioned. Functioning institutions produced different numbers. Focus shifted to a long-neglected drain: gold. The shift was not new discoveries. The gold had always existed. What changed was transparency. For years, output operated in shadows, estimates uncertain, exports opaque, records inconsistent. Wealth quietly slipped away, as in many resource-dependent states. Oversight intensified. Reporting standards hardened. Monitoring improved. Data began aligning with reality. The outcome? A striking official figure: 94 tons in 2025, a record achieved not through a surge, but through accurate accounting. It signaled authority. A government that measures its resources can eventually command them. That weakens outside leverage. Food stability explained public calm. Fiscal restraint explained endurance. Resource transparency clarified why the IMF had to reconsider. Burkina Faso was not improvising, it was asserting control in a critical sector. By the visit's conclusion, the statistics were clear. Yet the delegation did something symbolic as well. They stopped at the Thomas Sankara Memorial. Why? Sankara represents rigor, rupture, sovereignty over convenience. The visit was not ceremonial nostalgia, it tested conviction. Is this leadership merely reacting or anchored in principle? A government driven by conviction withstands pressure without abrupt reversals. That becomes predictable once recognized. The memorial connected history to the present. Fiscal rigor, food protection, resource oversight all originate from rejecting systemic disorder. The IMF did not validate ideology. It acknowledged consistency. When policy aligns with historical narrative, volatility decreases. Stability remains paramount in finance. The language evolved from alarm to credibility, from panic to resilience, from distance to engagement. Burkina Faso became understandable, and being understood is influence. The dialogue advanced beyond mere survival. If a state refuses dependency, imposes discipline, protects citizens, and remains intact, what does that imply about a global framework assuming Africa cannot? It fractures that premise. For decades, the international system presumed African sovereignty equals instability. Discipline requires supervision. Resistance guarantees collapse. Burkina Faso contradicted it, not rhetorically, but through endurance. The IMF's softened tone was not charity. It was factual adjustment. No meltdown occurred. No shutdown. No uprising. Resources did not evaporate. The machinery operated under strain, not shelter. This subtle unease spreads outward. Detractors sidestep specifics, retreating to ambiguous forecasts or recycled lectures. Yet the evidence remains. Burkina Faso imposed order where disorder prevailed, safeguarded food while tightening finances, made gold transparent, operated from conviction rather than approval. The system took notice, not endorsement, but acknowledgement. Across Africa, observers see that governance can function without perpetual oversight. That realization circulates quietly. Other administrations watch. Young citizens infer, if it holds there under pressure, excuses elsewhere diminish. Traore resonates as demonstration. Discipline can substitute for dependency. Sovereignty is not self-destruction. The established narrative is not destiny. The pressing question now is no longer about Burkina Faso. It is this: now that collapse is no longer assumed, who will be next to stop seeking permission? Share your thoughts below. Will more countries pursue this direction? Interested in deeper insights on Black culture, history, and identity? Subscribe and activate notifications. We're revealing stories others overlook. Thanks for watching. Stay connected.